Hello, my name's Scott Davis. Welcome to New World Birth. By accessing this presentation, you're inviting me to share this information regarding our passage through this challenging and very hopeful time. And this is the care and feeding of a New World Age report for the Gregorian date of February 7th, 2014, and one Ben or Reed or Corn in the Mayan Tzolkin calendar with retrograde Mercury moving into Aquarius, the Leo full moon, and the sun moving into Pisces during this report period. February 7, 2014 is one Ben or Reed or Corn, and it carries the themes of growth and sustenance, journeying in new directions, photosynthesis, protectors of the home and family, the world tree energy that connects heaven and earth, peace, harmony, and order, strength in being flexible, crusader or champion, and sharing with others. Quetzalcoatl, the god-king feathered serpent, was prophesied to return in the year of one Reed. Quetzalcoatl is credited with replacing human sacrifice with flowers, songs, and meditation. The Reed connects the light energy to the earth energy in an integration of multidimensional existence. Anyway, this Trecena is a time to be grateful for family and home and to share your most precious home, your open and loving heart with others. Before I get into the daily energy of one Reed, on the 7th, all the planets appear to be moving forward from our vantage point here on Earth, with the exception of Mercury and Jupiter, which both are appearing to be moving retrograde or in reverse motion from our perspective here on Earth. Jupiter was the king of the gods, and the planet is about good fortune, opportunities, faith, religion, beliefs, and expansion. Cancer is about family, home, nurturing, and protection. And mostly what I find with Jupiter retrograde, as with any retrograde cycle, there's a review of the past. And with Jupiter, what tends to get reviewed are missed opportunities. And in Cancer, this is likely to be about home and family. So the real big change for this Trecena is that Mercury turned retrograde the day before the Trecena started. Mercury turned retrograde on February 6th, and it's going to be retrograde right up until the 28th of February. So most of the month would be a good time to avoid signing contracts, other legal papers, making any major purchases, or even taking a new job. If you can postpone these types of activities, the terms are going to be much clearer after Mercury is moving direct. Mercury retrogrades force us to slow down and pay more attention in our lives by making us focus on the details of our daily experience. When looking at a retrograde cycle of any of the personal inner planets, it really provides information about a correction to our present course. And during this report period, we have Mercury beginning to travel it's just completed traveling through its first stage of its retrograde process, which was from January 22nd. Basically, we look at that there's really two important points to be aware of in looking at any retrograde cycle. One is where the point where the planet appears to move backwards, and the other is the point where it appears to move forwards again. The first stage, which we just wrapped up prior to Mercury turning retrograde on the 6th, it represents a shadow time of between passing 18 degrees of Aquarius to the point where the planet will eventually move forward again, and the point where it slows down, stops, and begins moving in reverse at 3 degrees of Pisces. So during that first stage, we received information about needing to adjust our direction. The second stage is the actual retrograde phase, and it's the time to watch for events related to the information we've received in the first stage. And then the third stage begins when the planet is moving forward again until it crosses the point where it originally turned retrograde. During the third stage, we will move forward with a revision to our previous course. We entered into the first stage, like I said, for Mercury on January 22nd. So from then until February 6th, that was the time period when we were receiving information about an adjustment that needs to be made in our lives. And then now we have Mercury retrograde from the 6th at 3 degrees Pisces until the 28th at 18 degrees of Aquarius, which will be a time where we're going to notice events that shift our thinking and then from February 28th until March 20th, we'll be in the 3rd stage where we implement the change in direction from our awareness gained through the experience of this process. What else can we say about this? One of the things I find interesting about this Mercury retrograde because is that during the course of it, it connects with 2 planets 3 times each. It squares Saturn and it trines Mars with 3 events each. On February 15th, the day that it conjuncts the Sun, which happens in every Mercury retrograde, and it's less than 24 hours after the dramatic Leo full moon, which all this kind of reminds me of that Chinese proverb, which I believe is also a curse, where it says, "May you live in interesting times." I've discovered that Mercury retrogrades repeat every 79 years. So what I'm looking at is what are the recurrence of themes that occurred in 1935, 1856, and 1777, because that was the last time those were the times when we had the same Mercury retrogrades as we're having in 2014. So let's look at those and see if they were at all interesting times. Well, 1935 saw Adolf Hitler's reinstatement of the Air Force, the Luftwaffe, and the rearmament of Nazi Germany. Both of those were in violation of the Treaty of Versailles. There was a coup d'etat attempt in Greece. There was a Harlem race riot occurring in New York City after a teenager was brutally beaten. There was the Great Dust Bowl in the United States and other natural disasters, being a 7.1 earthquake in Pakistan that killed 40,000 people, and the strongest hurricane to make landfall in the United States, killing 423 people. Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act, and the Congress of Industrial Organizations, or the CIO, was created, pushing the cause for industrial unionism. Heinrich Himmler's Lebensborn program was founded to support Nazi eugenics. Mao Zedong called for the National United Front against the Japanese invasion. And this was also a year where we saw the rise, and particularly the fall, of gangsters and bank robbers in the United States of America. What struck out to me was the realization that during this corresponding February of 1935 Mercury retrograde was also just shortly post the Uranus-Pluto squares that occurred the year before. Uranus was in Aries, as it is now, but Pluto was in Cancer during that time, and that was a historical time period of global financial decline and increased fascism. And then we go back another 79 years, we get to 1856, which brought an increase in the conflicts between pro-slavery and anti-slavery, with armed conflicts, particularly in Kansas, and Senator Charles Sumner being beaten with a cane by Congressman Preston Brooks for Sumner's speech attacking the Southerners who were sympathizing with the pro-slavery violence in Kansas, rendering Sumner unable to return to duty for 3 years, and Brooks becoming a hero across the South. We also have the Taiping Rebellion, the Second Opium War, the Anglo-Persian War were also events during 1856. 1856 was also a period when Neptune was last in Pisces, as it is currently, which is also a time when you see more compassion for the suffering of slaves in the United States, but there was also more opposition to that compassion, which currently seems to be being played out with the theme of wealth inequality here in the United States. Sorry, I still got my cold. Which, if all your income is only pays for your survival needs, then isn't that sort of a form of enslavement where you can't even get beyond, everything you do is just about just surviving as this gap is getting wider and wider between the haves and the have-nots. Of course, here in the United States, we've got millionaire legislators who are voting for corporate interests over their constituents' needs. And perhaps this will be a time of change, particularly given that this is the year of the Chinese year of the horse. I was reading recently that the 1% is becoming more fearful of America erupting in a way that is more similar to the French Revolution than the American Revolution. But, speaking of the American Revolution, in 1777, another 79 years into the past, we have the American Revolution becoming much more heated with the Continental Army operating as an organized fighting unit. Interestingly, though, the tactics that we look at as being carried out by patriots in history would now be seen as acts of terrorism from the modern viewpoint. Things such as attaching a time bomb to the hull of the HMS Eagle or placing cannons on Dorchester Heights overlooking the Boston Harbor. But these are really themes of the trickster archetype, to use cleverness and covert actions rather than battle a more powerful adversary on its own terms. During 1777, Pluto was in Capricorn, dismantling the power structures that had outgrown their usefulness, which was the last time Pluto was in Capricorn until it came into Capricorn again in 2008, where it remains today. Clearly, we're looking at cycles within cycles. The players have changed roles, but the themes of decaying empire, collapsing under its own weight, with individuals employing tactics of cleverness over direct confrontation, the oppressive power of fascist governments, economic decline, increasing the chasm between the elite and the struggling throngs, and the growing compassion for those left without a voice are the fabrics of our time. And if you look at the house of your astrological chart that contains 18 degrees of Aquarius to 3 degrees of Pisces, you can find where the theme where you're going to experience these revisions, reviews, rethinkings of characteristics represented by that house. For me, that's the 9th house of long distance travel and higher education. So I expect this cycle to provide new information about potential learning or teaching experiences with the possibility to travel to do so. So no matter where this Mercury retrograde occurs in your chart, this often leads to changing choices, goals, and directions. In the world, you want to look for themes of completion through emotional and spiritual review of the past, with strong spiritual undercurrents and other worldly realizations, but also bringing great confusion while Mercury is in Pisces, and that's the first phase of the trickster. And then we have communications will turn towards topics like the history of social consciousness, social justice, impartiality, freedom, individuality, and innovation when Mercury moves through Aquarius, where it's exalted, representing the second phase of the trickster. All the Mercury retrogrades in 2014 will move from a water sign to an air sign. So this one's from Pisces to Aquarius. The next one's going to be from Cancer to Gemini. And finally, we'll see the last retrograde of the year will go from Scorpio to Libra. As we begin the Trecena, Mercury is moving very slowly It's starting to build momentum as it turned retrograde at 3 degrees Pisces on the 6th. When the planet slows down to a stop from our perspective, which is where it really is at the beginning of this Trisena, this planet is considered to be at the peak of its power. And Mercury being at the peak of this power always reminds me of the Greek god Hermes, who the Romans renamed to Mercury. And he was the trickster god. He was the messenger of the god. And if you weren't on his good side, you might not get your message, or it might be altered to mean something different than what was intended. In mythology, the trickster is a god, goddess, man, woman, animal, or spirit that creates mischief by playing and acting outside the accepted rules of their community. I've covered this archetype in great depth in previous reports, but I want to share a quote from Joseph Campbell about the trickster. And the quote is, almost all non-literate mythology has a trickster hero of some kind. There's a very special property in the trickster. He breaks in, just as the unconscious does, to trip up a rational situation. He's both the fool and someone who is beyond the system. And the trickster represents those possibilities of life that the mind cannot decide what it wants to deal with. The mind tries to structure the lifestyle, and the fool or trickster represents a whole range of possibilities that he doesn't respect the values that you set up for yourself and smashes them. The fool is the breakthrough of the absolute into the field of controlled social orders. Thank you, Joseph Campbell. I think that's a fantastic description of Mercury retrograde. It contains a formula for confronting a much more powerful foes, being cunning over fighting them on their terms. So let's look at the daily vibrational energy for this Trisena. February 7th is one Ben or reed or corn. It's a unity experience through maintaining the home in the Mayan Tzolkin calendar. As we have the Gemini moon is challenged by Mercury and Neptune, which shifts from folks being critical in their communications, particularly with the people they have intimate relationships with, to later daydreams and fantasies feeling more important than reality. And then the 8th, we have 2 Ish or Jaguar. This is about duality being experienced through enjoying nature, as the moon in Gemini harmonizes with Uranus, which brings pleasant yet restless feelings, craving emotional excitement to do something outside the daily routine. February 9th is 3 Men or Eagle. It's about taking action through seeing from a higher perspective, while the moon in Gemini finds support from the Sun and Mars, which moves from a feeling of inner harmony, which is mirrored in the outside world, to later having the energy for asserting ourselves in a positive manner and standing our ground if necessary. The 10th is 4 Keeb or Wisdom. This is about stability through introspection, meditation, and forgiveness, while the Cancer moon finds support from Mercury and Neptune and is challenged by Uranus, which influences us beginning with feeling in touch with our emotions and expressing them to others, and then later fantasies and daydreams distracting us from accomplishing routine tasks, to finally people are likely to feel hasty and jump to conclusions. February 11th is 5 Kaban or Earth. This is about empowerment through gratitude for Mother Earth in the Mayan Tzolkin calendar. And we have the Sun in a square to Jupiter, to Saturn. So from our perspective here on Earth, this is a 90-degree angle, which may have people feeling unlucky and can bring up issues that are difficult to handle, but the effect doesn't seem to last for more than a few days. It really brings up 2 questions. And what do you owe others, and what do you owe yourself? And this really becomes a conflict between self-gratification and duty to others. the tension between two poles may seem limiting and depressing as we want to break out of a rut and find that the restrictions are holding us back from being ourselves. And folks will not want to go to work or school or interact with people, but and prefer not to, that in order to avoid associating with people that they prefer not to. And this can really bring resentments as obstacles interfere with our wishes to do what we want. Under this influence, people make assumptions without checking the facts, which is not favorable for relationships with authority figures. The best use of this transit is to channel the energy into self-discipline. Often others are not holding us back, but we're just projecting our internal restraint outwards onto people in our immediate environment. This is usually very low for physical and psychological energy during this transit. So you may feel like you've got like the weight of the world is just too heavy. And this transit shows our vulnerabilities and our weaknesses and gives us the idea that we can work to gain greater confidence. Also on the 11th, we've got the moon in Cancer, and it merges with Jupiter and is opposed by Pluto and Venus, which it starts the day with good feelings and generosity towards others, and then shifts to having deep emotions rising up to the surface, to later having pleasant energy for enjoying essential experiences and rich food, with a caution against overindulgence. And then the 12th, it's 6 Etsnob or Flint. It's about being in the flow through being introspective. And this is the point where Mercury now retrogrades across and back into Aquarius, which returns the focus of communications and thinking to social consciousness. Which, while being true to our individuality, to share our inventive ideas with groups and communities until it's moving direct and then re-enters Pisces on March 17th. Also on the 12th, the moon in Cancer finds support from Saturn. It's challenged by Mars, which moves from having sober, realistic view of life to later the potential for people to be irritable and have needless disputes when Mars influences the moon. February 13th is 7 Kawak or Storm, reflection through recognizing the gifts of adversity, with the Leo moon finding support from Uranus, which brings a desire for emotional excitement to engage in activities that are outside of our normal routine. And then February 14th is 8 Ahau, or Sun. It's about balance through honoring the wisdom and memory of our ancestors. And we have the Leo full moon at 26 degrees of Leo. It's challenged by Saturn and opposed by the Sun and Mercury, and in harmony with Mars. And this is about finding a balance between social consciousness, which is represented by the Sun and Aquarius, and being happy, creative, and having fun, which is represented by the moon in Leo. But we've got Saturn's serious influence on people, which people feel lonely or isolated. Mars has a desire to work independently from others. Mercury is bringing some folks into real conflict between feelings and reason, and others, while others are having fruitful expressions of their inner awareness, either internally or with another. But, you know, for those of you who are celebrating Valentine's Day, this could probably be some pretty challenging energy. You might want to just choose something that's low key instead of, you know, the Leo moon is full moon is going to want to go for really dramatic experiences. And then also on the 14th, the Sun is in a trine to Mars. So the Sun here is forming a 120-degree angle from our perspective here on Earth to Mars in Libra, which is positive for for being ourselves. It's wonderful energy for working alone on a project, not because we can't get along with others, but because we will not want to compromise our vision to accommodate the opinions of others. People will feel physically vigorous when Mars positively interacts with the Sun. So channeling this energy into physical activity is recommended, not only for the health of the body, but also for the uplifting effect it will have on the mind and spirit. This is a good time to look at various projects that have been begun in the past but not completed, to assess where they are in development and our motivations for initiating them. What can be completed soon? If there have been any recent new beginnings, are there imbalances that need adjusting? Looking at our own needs and criteria will help us make meaningful the work we engage in at this time. And then February 15th is 9 Amish, or crocodile, patience experienced through nurturing new beginnings in the Mayan Tzolkin calendar. And this is the point where the Sun and Mercury are at exactly the same degree of Aquarius. Which prior to turning retrograde, Mercury appeared to be way out in front of the Sun. And then it retrogrades back to conjoin the Sun, and then it falls behind the Sun. And a metaphor for this, I like to think of it as like prior to having mechanized warfare, generals would send their cavalry out ahead of the infantry to scout out the enemy's locations, find possible resources, as well as the lay of the terrain to move their troops with maximum efficiency, safety, and to their strategic advantage. And I like to think of Mercury, when it's stretching out in the Sun, as it's out in front of the Sun, as it's gathering intelligence to report back to our consciousness at the point where it's in its conjunction to the Sun on February 15th. So I'm going to use these two markers to give you a description here. I'm going to use the black tipped marker to represent Mercury, and the red will be representing the Sun. So what we're seeing is that Mercury moves out in front of the Sun, and then it's stretching, it's gathering information, and then it starts its retrograde process, so it's moving back. During that time when it's way out in front, it can be much more easily to get overwhelmed by the increase of new information that seems to have no place to be deposited, and this can increase our anxiety with a sense of losing control. And then as Mercury retrogrades back, you can see that the tension decreases until it merges with the Sun, which is going to occur again on February 15th, finding that destination for the intelligence that it's gathered. And then once behind the Sun, Mercury feels as though it's creating a drag that retards the possibility of implementing the new data until it moves forward again and regaining its forward motion as it then pursues the Sun, which is going to be happening after February 28th. Also on the 15th, we have the Mercury, the Virgo moon is opposed by Neptune, which can influence us to feel sensitive emotionally, but confused regarding the accuracy of what we're feeling. The 16th is 10 Eek, or wind. This is about manifestation through communication. And so it's interesting because this is the second of 3 Mercury trine Mars. Mercury is the planet of communication. Eek, or wind, is about communication. So I always love when there's a parallel between the Tzolkin and the astrology, which we definitely see here on February 16th, that being 10 Eek, and Mercury trine Mars. So from our perspective here on Earth, this is a 120-degree angle, which is good for mental work with more energy than usual, and the willingness to tackle difficult problems. People will be speaking their minds, not to get into fights, but to get their ideas out in the open. This transit really brings confidence in expressing beliefs without a fear of letting others know where you stand. But it can also bring a certain boldness and innovativeness to plans made at that time. This might be a good day to be aware of others' forceful opinions, because we're talking about Mars here, and avoid having a conflict when voicing our own opinions. The moon in Virgo harmonizes with Jupiter and finds support from Pluto and Venus. The day's emotional influence moves from feeling in the flow and having a sense of wholeness, and then when the moon connects with Pluto, it brings out more intense emotions and it stimulates our sensitivity, which can really favor a sexual relationship. And then when it's dancing with Venus, it brings enjoyment of pleasant feelings and social interactions. February 17th is 11 Akbal, or night resolution through contemplating the stars, while the moon in Virgo harmonizes with Saturn, which will have folks wanting to be alone in their thoughts and feelings. The 18th is 12 Khan, or seed, or lizard, which is about understanding through planting seeds and making new connections in the Tzolkin calendar. And this is the point where the sun moves into Pisces. Well, so what's happening here is, just imagine the end of this pointer is where the Earth is, and this is the line of sight. So the Earth has now moved around its orbit far enough that, from our perspective, the sun is now lining up with the constellation Pisces in the tropical system. This begins a month of illuminating and intuitive, unseen realms, inspiring spiritual and psychic experiences, but it also brings the fog of illusion. This can be the sun in Pisces can be confusing for folks. Also on the 18th, we got the Libra moon. It's opposed by Uranus and challenged by Jupiter and Pluto, which influences us with folks being more emotionally excitable and impulsive. And then with Jupiter, it brings more of a benevolent and generous feelings for those people in our immediate environment. And then finally, we have the compulsion to act in ways that may not be good for us in the long run when it's square Pluto. And then February 19th is 13 Chichan, a serpent. This is about movement to the next stage through being flexible. And this is where we have the second of 3 Mercury square Saturn. So from our perspective here on Earth, Mercury is at a 90-degree angle to Saturn, which favors heavy mental contemplating that requires disciplined thinking, a sharper mind, and a higher standard for quality. But it also brings difficulty in communicating and being understood by others. This is not the best time for any type of negotiations. Because folks really will be misinterpreting each other. So I delay any business dealings for a day or two. This is also a time when people are more likely to withdraw and feel lonely. The gift of this passage is that it increases our ability to think practically. But also, we also see the imperfections and flaws. And this can be really very serious about its pursuit for betterment. Make sure that you're honoring what's positive and not getting overwhelmed by the many imperfections that we can view during a transit like this. You know, we're very conscious of our flaws, including our own, so we can use our critical eye to what should be changed to bring improvement. You know, other people may serve as teachers or mentors at this time, but you know, and with Saturn, it could be particularly older people would be likely to be offering those qualities. But we got to also remember Saturn's in Scorpio, so make sure you've really done your research before you're out there speaking with any type of authority, because you may find yourself receiving some sort of censure. And then also on the 19th, we have the moon in Libra. It's challenged by Venus, finding support from Mercury, and it merges with Mars. So this moves from pleasant energies for being with others that we really want to get to know better, to later being more in touch with our feelings and able to share them with others, and then finally experiencing irritable moods and critical communications. So no matter what energies are affecting you during this one read, Trisena, take some time out to be in the flow of the planet by being in nature, watching a sunrise or sunset, communing with the stars, being conscious of the moment through introspection, meditation, or being with somebody you love. Every single day we have is a blessing, no matter what dramas are beckoning to distract us. We're all just here trying to give the performance of our lifetime on the world stage, but take some time out to observe the play as well as acting your part by remembering you're a spiritual being who's just having a human experience. As always, I want to thank you for checking out New World Birth. The next segment of Care and Feeding of a New World Age is going to be on February 20th, 2014 for one Kimi, or transformation, with Mercury turning direct, the Pisces new moon, Mars and Saturn both turning retrograde. So you can check us out on Facebook, YouTube, the Mayan Magics website before its news, and Blogger if you prefer to read things, read the text of this. As always, I encourage you to share this information as videos or as text as widely as you choose. I'll be discussing the astrology of February 2014 and providing short human design readings for the participants of the Earth Needs Rebels show on Orion Talk Radio, which has been rescheduled to Thursday, February 13th, due to an illness of the host. So, it's all keep Kevin Bull in our minds and wish him a speedy recovery. And he's a good man, and I'm looking forward to him getting better so that we can do that radio show on the 13th. And it's a great opportunity. If you want to get a reading or you want to come on the show, you just get them your phone number through the chat or through messaging Katie Research, and they'll call you for free anywhere on the planet to bring you on the show. As always, I invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you got any questions or wish to schedule a reading. And I am providing readings and wish to make this service available to the greatest amount of folks. So I created 3 options with 3 levels of compensation. These readings are really designed to provide information to help you navigate these uncertain times. At the basic level, we look at your human design chart to help you understand how to use your individual strategy and authority in making life decisions based on your unique design. I include astrological transits for 3 months as they relate to your natal and progressed astrology chart, along with the human design reading. So you got really 2 readings in one at the middle level. And then at the top level, the human design and the astrology transit reading is recorded and then sent to you as an MP3 file that you can download to your computer so you can listen to it over and over again and really suck the marrow out of the information that I provide. You think these videos are dense? Get a reading from me. It's 2 hours of just dense information that will really help you navigate this time. So if you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me, because I would love to provide you a reading during these times of uncertainty. You'll need to either be able to call me in Maine in the United States, or we can connect on Skype to receive your reading. We're also accepting donations to keep these reports freely available. As always, I am truly blessed that you've taken the time out to connect with my passion for these ancient mysteries and their application in our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste and Lakesh. And I really look forward to connecting with you, hopefully in the form of a reading or on the radio show or during the next video. Anyway, thanks everybody. Much gratitude. Peace.